How does a family of four disappear from a rest stop in broad daylight with their car still running and lunch half eaten on the picnic table? June 14th, 1985. Interstate 40, New Mexico. The Morrison family, David, Linda, and their two kids, 9-year-old Jake and 6-year-old Emma, pulled into Desert Springs rest area for a bathroom break. Their station wagon was found an hour later, engine running, doors wide open, Emma's teddy bear on the back seat. But the family was gone. For 39 years, nobody could explain what happened in that bathroom. Until 2024, when renovation crews discovered that the women's restroom had a door that led 30 feet underground to cells where 4 sets of handcuffs were still attached to the walls. Before we begin, subscribe to uncover the stories they tried to bury and ensure no case is ever forgotten. June 14th, 1985, Friday morning. The Morrison family had left their home in Chicago heading to Los Angeles. This wasn't just a vacation, it was a new beginning. David Morrison was 38 years old and hadn't been able to find work in Chicago for the past 6 months. The factory had closed, their savings had dwindled, but finally he had seen a ray of hope. A construction company in Los Angeles had offered him a job. Good salary, fresh start, a chance to get his family back on their feet. Linda Morrison was 36 years old, brown-haired, blue-eyed, a woman who always tried to stay positive. The last few years had been tough. Bills piled up, savings ran out, but Linda never lost hope. "Everything will be better in Los Angeles," she would tell her husband. "A sunny city, new friends, better schools for the kids." Jake Morrison was 9 years old, a curious and hyperactive child. He didn't want to leave his friends in Chicago, but when he saw the happiness on his father's face, he didn't object. "Dad, does California have beaches?" he had asked. David had laughed. "Yes, son, we can go to the beach every day." Emma Morrison was 6 years old, a little girl with big brown eyes and hair. She always carried her brown teddy bear, which she had named Mr. Cuddles. She didn't really understand much about moving. She just wanted to be with her family. The Morrison family set out at 6 a.m. Friday morning. They loaded their suitcases and boxes into their blue 1983 Chevrolet station wagon. David got behind the wheel, Linda sat in the front seat, Jake and Emma took their places in the back. The first stop was to cross from Illinois into Missouri. The first day went smoothly. Jake watched the scenery from the window. Emma played with Mr. Cuddles. Linda turned on music on the radio. David followed the road. In the evening, they stayed at a small motel in Oklahoma. Cheap but clean. The family had dinner at a nearby diner, then returned to the motel and went to bed early. The second day, June 14th, Friday, they continued at 8 a.m. The goal was to reach Arizona, maybe even cross the California border by the end of the day. David was excited. "One more day, kids, then our new home." At 2:30 p.m., they were in New Mexico on Interstate 40. The sun was scorching hot. The car's air conditioning wasn't working properly. Linda said, "Should we take a little break?" "Let the kids use the bathroom. We can cool off too." David looked at the map. "There's Desert Springs rest area 5 miles ahead. We'll stop there." At 2:47 p.m., the Morrison family entered Desert Springs rest area. The facility was small, at a desolate point on Interstate 40, a parking area, a few picnic tables, men's and women's restrooms, a drinking fountain. That was it. There weren't many people around. A few trucks, a camper van, a motorcycle. David parked the car and turned off the engine. Everyone got out of the vehicle. Hot wind hit their faces. Jake yawned. "Dad, it's so hot." "I know, son. Let's go to the bathroom, then we'll get something cold to drink." Linda chose one of the picnic tables and left a small bag on it. Inside were sandwiches, drinks, snacks. "Let's eat after we come back from the bathroom," she said. David and Jake walked to the men's restroom. Linda and Emma headed toward the women's restroom. Emma had left Mr. Cuddles in the back seat. "Mom, I forgot my teddy." "We'll get him when we come back, sweetheart. Let's go to the bathroom now." At 2:53 p.m., the families entered the restrooms. This was the last time the Morrison family was seen together. At 3:10 p.m., truck driver Terry Mason stopped at Desert Springs. As he entered the parking area, he noticed a blue station wagon. The engine was running, the front doors were open. The radio was still playing music. Terry found it strange. Maybe they forgot to turn it off until he thought. But 10 minutes later, when he came out of the bathroom, the car was still in the same condition. Engine running, nobody there. Terry approached the car. "Hey, is anyone here?" No answer. He looked inside. There was a toy bear in the back seat. A map sat on the front console. There was a bag on the picnic table with sandwiches and unopened drinks inside. Terry became uncomfortable. He went to the bathroom building. "Hey, is anyone here?" He checked the men's restroom. It was empty. He knocked on the women's restroom door. "Hello? Is anyone inside?" Silence. Terry called out to other people in the parking area. "Whose blue station wagon is this?" Did anyone leave their car and go? Nobody knew. At 3:15 p.m., Terry called 911. "I think there's a problem here. A family seems to be missing. Their car is running, but nobody's around." New Mexico State Police Officer Daniel Rodriguez arrived within 20 minutes. He assessed the situation. He checked the car's license plate, registered to David Morrison, Chicago, Illinois. Rodriguez opened the car's trunk. Inside were suitcases, clothes, toys. This family was moving. Rodriguez thoroughly searched the bathroom building. Men's restroom, women's restroom, all empty. He checked around the fountain. Nobody was there. He checked the other vehicles in the parking area. Nobody had seen the Morrison family. Rodriguez requested backup over his radio. Within an hour, 3 more police cars arrived. Search dogs were brought in. The dogs circled around the car, followed a trail to the bathroom building door, but then the trail disappeared. It was as if the family had entered the bathroom building and then gone nowhere. The FBI stepped in that night. Special Agent Patricia Hernandez came from the Albuquerque office. When she heard the situation, she was shocked. How does a family disappear from a public rest area in broad daylight? The Morrison family's background was investigated. David Morrison's record was clean. No debt, no criminal record. Linda Morrison was the same. A good family, just looking for a fresh start. They had no reason to run away. The next day, the media announced the news. Headlines like "Family Disappears on Road Trip" appeared in newspapers. Photos of David, Linda, Jake, and Emma were shown on television. Relatives in Chicago called the FBI in panic. David's brother, Robert Morrison, said, "My brother would never leave his children." Something happened. Something terrible. The FBI scanned Desert Springs rest area millimeter by millimeter. Every corner of the bathroom building was examined. Floor, walls, ceiling, no hidden door, no secret passage was found. The building had been constructed in the 1960s. It was a simple structure. There was nowhere to hide inside. The surrounding area search was also fruitless. The desert terrain was scanned for miles. Helicopters, thermal cameras, search dogs. No trace was found. The Morrison family seemed to have evaporated. In the first week, hundreds of tips came in. Someone said they saw the Morrison family in Texas. Another claimed to have seen them in Arizona. The FBI followed up on every tip. None were true. In the second week, a theory developed. Maybe David had run away with his family. Maybe he had debts the mafia was after him. But this was illogical. David's bank account had less than $300. He owed nobody. The third week, another theory. Maybe there was a serial killer. Maybe families were being targeted. The FBI reviewed all missing persons cases in the area. In 1982, Another family had disappeared at a similar rest area. In 1984, a couple had disappeared. Was there a connection? Nothing definitive was found. A month later, the case went cold. The FBI stopped active searching. The file was archived. The Morrison family was marked as presumed dead, but without bodies, no official death announcement could be made. Families were devastated. Robert Morrison never stopped searching for his brother. Every year he would go to Desert Springs and pray for the family. "One day I'll learn the truth," he would say. Linda's mother, Margaret, was inwardly destroyed because she never got to see her granddaughter, Emma. She died of depression in 1992. Years passed. 1990, 1995, 2000. The Morrison case was forgotten. The media lost interest. There was new news, new tragedies. But Robert Morrison never gave up. In 2010, Robert hired a private detective. The detective reviewed all the files again, but couldn't find anything new. "I'm sorry, Mr. Morrison, but this case seems unsolvable." In 2015, Robert was diagnosed with cancer. His health deteriorated, but his final wish was clear. "I want to find my brother. I want to learn the truth before I die." Robert died in 2019. His last words were, "Find David." In March 2024, the New Mexico Department of Transportation decided to renovate Desert Springs Rest Area. The building was 60 years old, dilapidated. It would be demolished and rebuilt. On March 15th, 2024, demolition crews started work. Heavy machinery began demolishing the bathroom building. Worker Carlos Mendez was breaking the women's restroom floor with a bulldozer. At 10:30 a.m., when the bulldozer pierced the floor, it hit something metal. Carlos stopped. "Boss, there's something here." Boss Miguel Santos came over. There was a metal door in the floor, rusted but solid. They cleaned the concrete around it. There were no markings on the door, just a lock. Miguel said, "What is this?" "There's nothing like this in the plans." They checked the facility plans. The 1960 construction plans didn't mention this door. Miguel said, "Call the police. Call the FBI. This could be serious." The FBI arrived within 2 hours. Special Agent Lisa Martinez and her team secured the area. Debris around the door was cleared. The door was under the concrete floor, buried at about 3 feet deep. The lock was broken with a hydraulic cutter. The door opened with a heavy groan. Damp, stale air came from inside. Lisa looked inside with a flashlight. There were stairs, metal stairs, going down. Lisa and 2 agents descended the stairs. They went down 30 feet and arrived at a corridor. The corridor had concrete walls, a low ceiling but was wide. There were doors on both sides of the corridor. Lisa opened the first door. Inside was like a small cell. A concrete bed, a sink, a toilet. There were metal rings on the walls with chains attached to them. At the end of the chains were handcuffs. 4 pairs of handcuffs. Lisa held her breath. This is a prison. They opened the second door. A similar cell. Third door. Fourth door. There were a total of 6 cells. Blood stains, hair samples, and fabric pieces were collected from each cell. At the end of the corridor was an office. Inside was a desk, a chair, filing cabinets. Lisa opened one of the cabinets. Inside were dozens of files. Each file had a family in it. Morrison family, Smith family, Johnson family, Rodriguez family, a total of 11 files. Lisa opened the Morrison file. Inside were photos of David, Linda, Jake, and Emma. Personal information, vehicle plate number, travel route. Someone had been following this family. The most shocking finding was at the end of the file. There were handwritten notes. Morrison family, June 14th, 1985, 2:55 p.m., women's restroom. Trap worked. 4 people taken, placed in cells 1 and 2. The note continued. Held for 18 days, showed resistance. Terminated July 2nd, 1985. Bodies dumped in desert 40 miles west. Signature, MK. Lisa immediately called headquarters. We found the case. The Morrison family was brought here. The killer held them for 18 days. There are notes signed MK. The FBI investigated who MK was. Employee records from Desert Springs Rest Area from the 1960s to the 2000s were examined. One name stood out, Martin Kowalski, maintenance worker, employed from 1975 to 1995. Martin Kowalski left New Mexico in 1995 and moved to Nevada. In 2024, he was 72 years old. The FBI team went to Nevada. Kowalski's house was raided. Horrific evidence was found in the house. Trophies he had taken from families, photos, personal items. Emma Morrison's teddy bear, Mr. Cuddles. David Morrison's driver's license. Linda Morrison's wedding ring. Jake Morrison's toy car. Everything was in a display cabinet. When Martin Kowalski was caught, he showed no remorse. In the FBI interrogation, he coldly confessed. The rest stop was my hunting ground. Families would always stop there for bathroom breaks. I was the maintenance worker. Nobody would suspect me. In 1975, I built the underground cells. I made a hidden trap door in the bathroom floor, in the women's restroom, in the third stall. When someone used that stall, I would press the button, the floor would open, they would fall down. Then I would close the door. Nobody would hear anything. What did you do to the Morrison family? Lisa asked. I held them for 18 days. The family completely resisted, especially the man, David. He constantly tried to escape. The children were crying. The woman was begging. But in the end, I killed them all. I took their bodies to the desert. The waves took them. I mean the desert wind. Martin Kowalski was tried for first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. At 72 years old, he would die in prison. The Morrison family's remains were never found. The desert was too vast, too desolate. But families at least learned the truth. Robert Morrison's son, David Morrison Jr., held a press conference in 2024. My Uncle Robert never gave up. Every year he would go to the rest stop and wait. I wish he could have learned the truth, but at least we know. My father David, my mother Linda, my brother Jake, my sister Emma were innocent victims. Martin Kowalski took them, but their memory will live forever. Desert Springs Rest Area was never rebuilt. Instead, a memorial was erected. The names of the Morrison family and the other 10 families were engraved on a granite monument. Every year on June 14th, the state of New Mexico holds a memorial ceremony. This story shows us that even the most ordinary-looking places can hide dark secrets. What happened at Desert Springs in 1985 wasn't just the death of 4 people. It was the loss of society's sense of security. People like Martin Kowalski could live secretly in society, appearing to be trustworthy. The Morrison family's story was proof of that. Today, the FBI has developed new systems to prevent such cases. Security cameras have been increased at rest stops. Regular inspections are conducted. It has become nearly impossible for someone like Martin Kowalski to set up such a system again. But the most important lesson is this: society must remain vigilant. Family safety is everyone's responsibility. Reporting suspicious situations, staying in constant communication with children, and ensuring their safety are the first steps in preventing such tragedies. The Desert Springs case also showed that missing persons investigations should never be abandoned. Evidence found after 39 years provided closure to families and contributed to preventing similar crimes. Justice came late, but it ultimately prevailed. The Morrison family's story ended tragically, but their memory will live forever in New Mexico. The rest stop is gone, but their story inspires the protection of future generations, because no forgotten story is truly forgotten.